I never put much stock in fate, at least not until that autumn afternoon, when my life shifted inside Sophia's little vintage boutique. My name is Rowan White, and most folks know me simply as a wilderness guide. What they don't realize is that my work isn't just about leading people through the woods. It's about unearthing the secrets the forest has guarded for centuries. 3 weeks ago, while leading an archaeological team through the dense Virginia woods outside Richmond, I discovered something that made my heart race. Tucked beneath the roots of a centuries-old oak were documents wrapped in oiled leather, tribal records that could rewrite local history. The rain droomed against Sophia's shop windows as I pushed through the door, shaking droplets from my black hair. I needed something professional for next week's grant presentation, something that wouldn't scream, "I sleep under stars more than roofs." The competition for the cultural preservation grant was fierce, and $50,000 could finally make my dream of opening a Native American cultural center reality. My fingers found the soft leather of a 1942 jacket hanging near the back. Perfect. As I lifted it from the rack, another hand brushed mine. "Oh, I'm sorry." I looked up into the blessed eyes I'd ever seen. The woman was maybe 5'6", blonde hair escaping from what had probably started as a neat bun. She wore a cardigan that belonged in a library, which somehow made her more intriguing. "No problem," I said, though neither of us let go of the jacket. "Evelyn Hartley," she offered a small smile. "And I have terrible timing apparently." "Marina White. And actually your timing might be perfect." Sophia appeared beside us, silver bracelets jingling. Ladies, I have to jackets, you know." But we were already laughing, the tension breaking like morning frost. Evelyn had this way of tilting her head when she was amused, and I found myself wanting to see it again. "Coffee?" I asked, surprising myself. "There's a place across the street." 20 minutes later, we sat in mismatched chairs at Grind Coffee, steam rising from our mugs. Evelyn worked at the Richmond Public Library's Special Collections Department, a job that sounded mind-numbingly quiet until she described hunting down rare manuscripts. "Like a detective. Last month, I tracked down a first edition that had been missing for 30 years, she said, eyes lighting up. "Found it in an estate sale, mislabeled as a cookbook. I know the feeling. I just found something in the woods that's been missing even longer." She leaned forward. "What kind of something?" I hesitated. Trust didn't come easily to me, but something about Evelyn felt different. Safe tribal land records. Documents that could prove my people had settlements here long before anyone thought possible. "That's incredible. Are you working with the Virginia Historical Society?" "Trying to. I'm competing for a cultural preservation grant, but the research requirements are crushing. I need access to archives I don't have clearance for." Evelyn was quiet for a moment, studying my face. "I might be able to help with that." "Why would you?" She shrugged, but her cheeks flushed pink. "Maybe because you're the first person I've met who gets as excited about dusty old documents as I do." The rain had stopped by the time we left the coffee shop. We stood on the sidewalk, neither wanting to break the spell. "Tomorrow night?" Evelyn asked. "The library has extended hours. I could show you the restricted archives." "You do that for a stranger." "Are we strangers?" She stepped closer, and I caught the faint scent of lavender because it doesn't feel like it. Something shifted in the space between us, electric and warm. When she smiled, really smiled, it transformed her entire face. "Tomorrow night then," I said, as I watched her walk away, jacket bag swinging at her side. I had the strangest feeling that my life had just taken a turn I hadn't seen coming. The document in my truck suddenly felt less important than the librarian, who might help me unlock their secrets. The next evening found me standing outside Richmond Public Library at closing time, feeling more nervous than I had before any wilderness expedition. Through the tall windows, I could see Evelyn moving between the stacks, her blonde hair catching the lamplight. She unlocked the door with a conspiratorial smile, ready for some after-hours adventure. The library felt different in the quiet darkness full of whispered secrets. Evelyn led me through corridors I hadn't known existed, past reading rooms, and into the heart of the building where the real treasures lived. "This is my domain," she said, gesturing to the climate-controlled archives. Temperature 70, humidity controlled, and absolutely no food or drinks allowed. What about rule-breaking librarians? Especially not those. But her eyes sparkled as she said it. The restricted section was exactly what I'd imagined. All dark wood and glass cases filled with documents that could rewrite history. Evelyn pulled on white cotton gloves and began retrieving boxes with practiced efficiency. Virginia Colonial Records 607 to 1750. She announced in some Native American treaty documents that might interest you. As we worked side by side, I found myself stealing glances at her profile. She had this intense focus when examining documents, like she was having conversations with the past. Her fingers moved over pages with reverence. "Tell me about the grant competition," she said without looking up. $50,000 for cultural preservation projects. The catch is proving historical significance with documented evidence. I spread out photocopies of my forest discovery. These suggest my ancestors had permanent settlements here, 2 centuries earlier than recorded history claims. Evelyn's breath caught as she examined the copies. "Rowan, if these are authentic, they're remarkable, but you'll need supporting documentation. That's where I'm stuck. I need access to colonial land surveys, missionary records, anything that might reference native settlements. I can get you all of that." She looked up and something had shifted in her expression. "But there's something you should know. You're not the only one researching this topic." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "Blake Harrington. He's been requesting similar materials for weeks. Says he's working on a cultural history project, too." Blake Harrington. The name hit like cold water. Tall guy, expensive suits, talks like he's running for office. "You know him?" "He's my main competition for the grant." "Damn it." I ran a hand through my hair. "What exactly has he been looking at?" Evelyn hesitated, clearly torn between professional ethics and whatever was growing between us. "Technically, I shouldn't discuss other patrons' research." "Evelyn," I moved closer, close enough to see the flecks of gray in her blue eyes. "This isn't just about money. It's about preserving my heritage, my grandmother's stories. If Blake's using his connections to get ahead," he requested the Jamestown settlement papers, early colonial correspondence, some of the same missionary records you'd need. The implications sank in. Blake had political connections, funding, and apparently a head start on research. But he didn't have what I had. Authentic connection to the land and its history. "I can help level the playing field," Evelyn said quietly. "Give you access to everything he's seen, plus materials he might not know exist." "Why would you risk your job for me?" She was quiet for a long moment, then reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. The touch sent warmth shooting up my arm. "Because yesterday, when you talked about your grandmother's stories, your whole face changed. You weren't just discussing history. You were sharing your soul." Her thumb traced across my knuckles. "And because I've spent 5 years in this job helping researchers, but I've never felt invested in their success until now." The air between us crackled with possibility. In the dim light of the archives, surrounded by centuries of secrets, Evelyn looked almost ethereal. When she leaned closer, I could smell that faint lavender again. "Rowan." "Yeah, I think we should work together. Officially, I mean, research partners. Is that what we're calling it?" Her smile was answer enough. When she stood to retrieve another box of documents, I watched the graceful way she moved through her sanctuary. Something was happening between us. Something that felt bigger than grant competitions or historical research. "Here," she said, returning with an armload of materials. "Colonial surveyor maps from 1690. If your settlements existed, There might be references to native clearings or structures. As we bent over the maps together, her shoulder pressed against mine. The warmth of her proximity made concentration difficult, but I forced myself to focus on the faded ink and careful notations. "Look at this," I whispered, pointing to a marking near what was now the forest where I'd found the documents. "Unknown structures, possibly seasonal habitation." "That's not far from where you found your documents," Evelyn breathed. Our faces were inches apart now, both of us pretending to study the map while electricity arced between us. When I turned my head, her lips were right there. The kiss was soft, tentative, like a question being asked. When I didn't pull away, she deepened it slightly, her hand coming up to rest against my cheek. We broke apart slowly, both breathing unsteadily. "That wasn't very professional," she whispered. "Good thing we're after hours." Late nights in the library became our ritual. Over the following week, Evelyn and I fell into an easy rhythm meeting after her official hours ended to dive deeper into the archives. What started as research assistance had evolved into something that made my chest tight with anticipation every evening. "Look at this," Evelyn said, pulling out a leather-bound journal. "Father Adon Keating's missionary records from 1695. He mentions trading with native settlements along the James River." I leaned over her shoulder, breathing in that familiar lavender scent. "This is incredible. He's describing seasonal fishing camps exactly where my documents were found." The basement archives felt like our own private world. Evelyn had shown me hidden passages between sections, explained the library's secret history while we worked. By lamplight, I was learning she had layers I hadn't expected. Beneath the proper librarian exterior was someone with surprising boldness. "You know what I realized today?" she said, not looking up from Mackenzie's journal. "What?" "I've been happier this week than I have in months, maybe years. Because of dusty old papers, because of you." She met my eyes and I saw vulnerability there that made my heart skip. "Is that crazy? We barely know each other. Feels like I've known you longer than that." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Tell me something about yourself nobody else knows." She was quiet for a moment, thumb tracing circles on my palm. "I became a librarian because I was afraid of the real world. Books felt safer than people, predictable. And now I'm in a library basement at 10 p.m. with someone who makes me want to be brave." The air between us shifted, charged with something deeper than attraction. When Evelyn stood and walked to the narrow window showing the parking lot, I followed. "My grandmother used to say that some meetings are written in the stars long before they happen," I said, standing close behind her. "Do you believe that?" "I'm starting to." She turned in the small space between me and the window, her back pressed against the cool glass. "Marina, yeah, I want to kiss you again properly this time." I didn't need to be asked twice. This kiss was different from our tentative first one, deeper, more certain. Her hand came up to frame my face as I pressed closer, feeling the rapid beat of her heart against my chest. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "Damn," she whispered. My thoughts exactly. Rain started pattering against the window behind her, the sound mixing with our unsteady breathing. Outside, autumn lightning flickered across the Richmond skyline, illuminating her face in quick flashes. "I should tell you something," I said, still holding her close. "This grant competition isn't just about money. If I win, I can finally honor my grandmother's dream. She wanted to build a place where our stories wouldn't be forgotten." "Tell me about her." "She raised me after my parents passed, taught me to read the woods, to hear what the land remembers. She always said, our elders left messages in the bark, the rock patterns, the places where earth stores memory." Evelyn brushed her fingertips along my cheek. "That's beautiful. She died 5 years ago. I've been trying to bring her vision to life ever since." "And Blake Harrington? He sees profit in politics. He has no idea what we're actually protecting." I lifted a loose strand of blonde hair from her face. "But you do. You understand why this matters. Because history without soul is just names and dates. Exactly. The storm deepened, rain hammering harder against the panes. Evelyn shivered, and I held her closer. I have an idea, she murmured. Let me show you the upstairs restricted collection, the truly restricted one. Higher clearance. Climate-controlled rare book room. Only 3 people can get in. Her smile turned sly. Want to see real treasures? Following her through the dim library felt like a midnight escapade. The rare book room was smaller than the main archives, lined with glass cases holding volumes worth more than my truck. What drew my eye, though, was the cozy reading chair by a tall window. This is where I come to think, Evelyn said. Or when life feels too complicated. Does it feel complicated now? Beautifully complicated. She curled into the chair and tugged me down beside her. The space was meant for one, pushing us into each other's warmth. Lightning flickered outside, shadows sliding over her face. I keep circling back to timing, she said softly. How you stepped into Sophia's shop at the exact moment. How you needed research help and I happened to have access. How it all clicks. My grandmother would say, the ancestors are guiding us. Maybe they are. When she kissed me again, it was gentle and curious, as if she was memorizing the moment. I melted into the heat of her mouth, the careful press of her lips. My hands found the soft skin at the base of her neck, and the small sound she made sent warmth pooling low in my belly. Rain kept its steady beat on the window while we held each other in a chair made for one, surrounded by centuries of preserved thought. With Evelyn's heartbeat steady against my chest, it felt like we were adding our own line to the library's long history of safeguarding precious things. Come with me this weekend, I said Friday evening as we packed up our notes. I want to show you the forest where I uncovered the documents. Evelyn glanced up from the colonial maps. Camping? Just one night. I think you need to stand where these stories live. Feel the connection. She bit her lower lip, the gesture that meant she was weighing risk and desire. I've never camped. Ever. I'll take care of you. Trust me. By Saturday morning we were loading the truck. Evelyn borrowed hiking boots and looked endearingly out of place in her new trail clothes. Crisp autumn air hinted at change as we drove toward Virginia's deep woods. It's gorgeous, she breathed as we walked the path. Gold leaves drifted around us. Beams of sun pierced the canopy like natural spotlights. This is nothing. Wait for the sacred grove. An hour later, I brought her to the clearing where I'd made the find. Ancient oaks formed a ring, their massive trunks scarred by age and weather. In the center, a slender creek wove between mossy stones. Oh, Evelyn whispered. I can feel it. The history. My grandmother always said, places like this hold memory in the ground itself. I knelt at the creek and ran my fingers through cold water. She taught me to listen. Evelyn sat beside me, warmth steady against the afternoon chill. What do you hear? Stories. Laughter around old fires. Kids playing by this same stream centuries ago. I looked at her. What do you feel? Peace. Like coming home to somewhere I've never been. As the sun dipped, I showed her wilderness basics. She learned fast fire building, camp setup driven and focused. When she sparked our fire on her third try, her triumph tightened my chest with affection. I can't believe I lived 30 years without knowing this, she said as we ate from my camp kit. Most people never do. They're wary of the wild. Were you ever afraid of the forest? Never. Of other things. Constantly. She slid closer on the log we'd pulled near the flames. Like what? Failing my grandmother. Not being strong enough to keep what she wanted saved. Being alone. I met her eyes across the dancing light. Not anymore, though. Rowan, I know it's fast. We barely know each other. But something about you feels inevitable. I answered without words. The fire glazed her face in gold when her fingers laced in my hair. Everything else fell away, just the warmth of her mouth and the quiet sounds against my lips. Tell me your dreams, she whispered when we paused. The cultural center, a place where kids learn traditional skills, elders share stories, where history lives instead of being trapped in books. It sounds perfect. What about mine? She was quiet, staring into the embers. I used to want only stability, predictability. But lately, she looked at me. Lately I dream of adventure, of being brave enough for a bigger life. You are brave. You're here, aren't you? Because of you. When the fire burned low, we retreated to the tent. The small space pressed us close in our bags. Outside, the forest settled. An owl's call, a rustle in the understory. Evelyn, thank you for the research, for believing in what I'm trying to do. She turned in the dim glow through the tent walls. Thank you for showing me there's a world beyond stacks and catalogs. This kiss was different, hungrier. Her hands found my shirt's hem. Her fingers were cool against my warmed skin. The kiss deepened. I drew her closer. Every curve pressed to mine. Are you sure? I breathed against her neck. I've never been surer. We moved slowly, finding each other's rhythm in the intimate dark. Her skin was silk under my hands. When she arched to meet me, it felt sacred, like discovery. Every touch and whispered endearment felt like a promise we didn't name but both understood. After, we lay tangled, listening to the creek's murmur and wind in the oaks. Evelyn traced idle patterns on my shoulder, breathing easing. I didn't expect this, she said softly. You, us, like my whole life just clicked into focus. I kissed her forehead. My grandmother used to say, love shows up when you're busy looking for something else. Were we looking for something else? I wanted evidence. You wanted adventure. And we found each other. We found each other. Dawn tinted the tent in soft gold. I watched her sleep and felt something settle deep, peace. Or certainty. For the first time since my grandmother's passing, the future looked worth the fight. 3 weeks before the presentation deadline, Blake Harrington made his move. I was updating notes in Evelyn's favorite cafe when he slid into the seat across from me. His tailored suit shrinking the cozy space. Rowan White, he said, with a politician's grin. Mind if I sit? Actually, I do. Come now. We're aligned, cultural preservation, yes? I set down my coffee and studied him. Handsome in a polished way, personal trainers, stylists. Money and connections seeped from him. My understanding is we're competitors. Competition implies parity. We both know I hold advantages. He leaned back, assured. I respect your work. The noble savage angle plays well with the committee. Heat flared. Excuse me. No offense intended. I'm saying we could collaborate, not clash. Pool resources, split the grant. Why would you want that? His smile sharpened. Because I know the judges. They adore authenticity, you've got that. They also reward professional polish, political backing, institutional heft, which I excel at. And what makes you think I need your help? Well, for starters, I know you've been doing unauthorized after-hours research at the public library with a certain blonde librarian who lacks clearance for the materials she's showing you. My coffee turned bitter on my tongue. You've been watching me. I've been thorough. Amazing what cameras see. Very romantic, actually. Late-night archive sessions. The threat was velvet-wrapped but clear. One word could cost Evelyn her job and wreck my legitimate shot. What do you want, Blake? Partnership. You bring the indigenous authenticity. I bring academic credibility and politics. We present together, split the funds, everyone wins. And if I say no, then I wonder how the library board would feel about staff misconduct, or how the committee might react to research obtained improperly. I swallowed my temper. I need time. Take a day or two, not longer. The clock is ticking. I'd hate for us to miss out. After he left, I stared at cooling coffee, mind racing. He had me boxed in. Refuse and he could ruin both our chances and Evelyn's career. Accepting meant betraying everything my grandmother taught me. That evening I found Evelyn in the archives, buried in more colonial papers than usual. "I think I found something big," she said, eyes on the page. "A 1692 surveyor's report mentioning permanent native structures in your forest region. Evelyn, we need to talk." Something in my voice made her look up. "What happened?" I told her about Blake, the veiled threats, his knowledge of our after-hours sessions. I watched her go pale as it landed. "He can't prove it," she said, without conviction. "Security cameras." She raked a hand through her hair. "My job. I could lose everything. Not if I take his deal." "No." She stood abruptly. "Absolutely not. You can't trade your principles for me. My principles won't matter if we're both wrecked. Rowan, listen." She came around the table and caught my hands. "What would your grandmother say about partnering with someone who threatens what she stood for?" She'd say, "Protect the people you love first." And I'm saying, people who love you don't want protection at the cost of your soul. We held each other's gaze over an impossible choice. Outside, rain restarted, drumming on the windows like impatient fingers. "There has to be another way," Evelyn said at last. "He has connections I don't, political backing, institutional support, probably half the committee lined up. But he doesn't have what you have. Truth, authenticity, a living bond to what you're preserving." She squeezed my hands. "And documents he doesn't even know about." "What do you mean?" "Remember the missionary records? Father Adon Keating's detailed notes on seasonal settlements. Blake requested colonial correspondence, but specifically excluded missionary documents, said they weren't relevant. So he doesn't know they exist. We have evidence he's never seen, proof that can carry your presentation. Without anything he can undercut." Hope flickered. "You think it's enough?" "I think your grandmother raised someone who doesn't bow to bullies." Steel flashed in her eyes. "And I think Blake Harrington just made the mistake of threatening someone I care about. Evelyn, we're going to beat him." Rowan, with stronger research, a better presentation, and an actual understanding of cultural preservation. "And your job? Let me worry about mine. Right now, we work." As we settled back in, the old thrill washed over me, falling harder for her courage. Her fierce loyalty, the way she said we were already welded. Blake wanted to play politics. Fine. He was about to learn some fights are won with heart, and a stubborn vow to honor the past while building something better. Then the pressure hit like an avalanche. 2 weeks out, every waking hour went to refining my proposal, cross-checking sources, and bracing for the performance of a lifetime. The center wasn't just a dream, it was essential. The only way to honor what my grandmother gave up. Sleep became optional. I pushed 18-hour days on coffee and will. The $50,000 wasn't just money. It was a statement that our history mattered, that the stories handed down deserved safeguarding. Evelyn tried to help, but the strain showed. The easy closeness from our campout felt fragile under stress and deadlines. If she suggested breaks, I snapped. If she offered dinner, I declined. "You're driving yourself too hard," she said one night, finding me hunched over survey maps. "This is what it takes. This is obsession, Rowan. When did you last eat real food? When did you last have 50 grand and your whole heritage riding on one presentation?" Her face fell. Regret pinched, but I was too far gone to pull it back. "I'm trying to support you," she said quietly. "Then let me work." She left. I told myself it was better. Focus requires sacrifice. Love could wait until after. 3 days later, it all unraveled. Blake knocked with a folder and that predatory smile. "Change of plans," he said, walking in. "No need for partnership after all." "What are you talking about?" "These." He spread photos across my table. Evelyn and me in the archives, time-stamped. Amazing what a private investigator can capture. You hired someone to tail us. I hired someone to document. Unauthorized access to restricted materials. Boards care about misconduct, especially when it looks like theft of intellectual property. Evelyn didn't steal anything. She gave you privileged access. That's academic fraud at best, career ending. Scandal at worst. What do you want? Withdraw. Publicly. Cite family issues. Whatever sells. If you don't, the board gets these along with logs of every after-hours visit. Your girlfriend loses her job and reputation. The committee gets copies, too. Wouldn't want tainted research swaying them. After he left, I sagged onto the couch, staring at the bare spot where the photos had been. Everything I'd built collapsing because I'd fallen for someone brave enough to help me. My phone buzzed. Dinner tonight. Miss you. I watched the words blur. How could I tell her loving me had put her career on a wire? I poured a drink, then another. The burn dulled the panic's edges, leaving only a slow ache. Morning found me hollow and hung over in her section while she shelved returns. She looked up with the smile that first hooked me, and my heart splintered. Rowan, I wasn't expecting you early. We need to talk. Her smile vanished. What's wrong? This isn't working. The timing is wrong. What are you saying? I forced myself to meet her eyes and make the lie sound true. I'm too focused on the grant. I don't have room for a relationship. No. We talked about this. We're a team. We're a distraction. I was fooling myself thinking I could manage both. Her face crumpled, hurt, swallowing confusion. This is stress talking. We can fix it. There's nothing to fix. I shouldn't have started anything with my future up in the air. You don't mean that. But I was already walking away, leaving her between the stacks, tears gathering in those blue eyes. Each step tore something out of me. Blake's threat marched beside me. That night I drafted my withdrawal. Official letterhead. Polite language. Personal obligations preventing completion. My grandmother's photo watched from the mantel while I sealed the envelope, her gaze holding disappointment and understanding. She'd made hard choices, too. Chosen survival over idealism more than once. I'm sorry, I whispered. I can't let him destroy her. I mailed it in the morning. By afternoon, Blake called, smug even through the line. Wise choice, Rowan. Now everyone wins. Everyone except Evelyn, who lost the person she'd let in. Everyone except me, watching my heritage slide into political theater. Everyone except my grandmother's ghost, whose dream I'd sacrificed to protect someone who might never forgive me. 3 days later, Sophia knocked at my door with fresh coffee and a face out of patience. She swept in without asking. You look awful, she declared. Great pep talk. What I want is an explanation for why my two favorite customers look wrecked. She sat, uninvited. Evelyn came by yesterday crying. You've ignored your phone. Talk. I told her everything. Blake's pressure, the photos, the impossible choice. Sophia's eyes grew darker with every detail. That son of a, she hissed. He had me cornered. Then fight back, idiot. With what? He's got money, clout, evidence. He has manipulation and coercion. That's not the same as truth. Tell that to the board when they fire Evelyn. Listen carefully. She stopped pacing and leveled a glare. Blake's been in my shop for months, probing about you two, fishing for your schedules, whether you came together, how serious it looked. Cold swept through me. What kind of questions? When you usually showed up. If you shopped together. I thought he was nosy. Maybe into you. Now I see he was gathering intel. That doesn't change his photos. Are they real documentation? Or staging he arranged to get leverage? The idea hit like ice water. You think he set us up? I think he orchestrated the whole thing to kneecap his biggest rival. And I think Evelyn deserves truth before you torch both your lives in the name of noble sacrifice. I can't risk it. If I'm wrong, you're no worse off. If I'm right, you save both your futures and nail him to the wall. How do we prove it? Sophia's smile turned feral. Leave that to me. But first, tell Evelyn the real truth. An hour later I stood outside the library, heart pounding. Through the glass, Evelyn sat at her desk, dimmed, shoulders curved, movements small. She looked up as I approached. The pain in her eyes nearly sent me fleeing. Rowan. Neutral. What are you doing here? I came to be honest. I thought you already were. I sat across from her, ignoring curious patrons. Blake blackmailed me. He had photos of us in the archives. Threatened your job if I didn't withdraw. She stared a long beat. So you chose to break my heart. I chose to protect you without asking what you wanted, she said, the simple words cutting like a blade. I panicked. I couldn't watch him destroy your career because of me. Did it occur to you that I can fight my own battles, Rowan? No. And you're right. I should have trusted you enough to tell you. Sophia thinks he staged it. I added. She says he's been sniffing around for months, probing our habits. That bastard. Evelyn breathed, fury lighting her features. He played us. Sophia thinks she can prove it. But I needed to tell you first. I'm sorry I didn't trust you with the truth. Her voice softened a fraction. Partnership means making the hard calls together. If you want forgiveness, help me take his scheme apart. How? By doing what we should have done, fighting together. The deadline passed, I said. For regular submissions, she countered. The committee allows late entries in special cases like misconduct by competitors. You want back in. I want to expose him, restore your grandmother's dream, and show him what happens when he threatens people I love. The old thrill returned as she outlined a plan. This wasn't the quiet librarian from Sophia's shop. This was a warrior. Evelyn. Yes, I love you. And I'm sorry I forgot love means trusting you with everything, even the scary parts. She took my hand. I love you, too. And next time you decide to be noble, loop me in. Deal? Good. Let's go save your heritage and bury that smug. Sophia's evidence was worse for him than we dreamed. Her shop's security footage caught Blake surveilling, photographing the library, timing our rivals. Phone records showed calls to a pie service the week before his threat. Most damning, Sophia had recorded him fishing for dirt about our relationship. 2 days before the committee's final call, we walked into the foundation offices with an emergency application. The receptionist looked doubtful until Evelyn explained. We had evidence of misconduct tainting the competition. Within an hour, we sat before the 3-member committee. Director Dr. Lydia Park paged through our packet as her colleagues reviewed Sophia's file on Blake. These are serious charges, Dr. Chen said. Industrial snooping, harassment, manipulation of process. He violated core academic ethics. He tried to eliminate rivals by coercion instead of merit, I said. Your initial application was strong, Dr. Jordan Ortega added. The pre-colonial settlement documentation is remarkable. Mr. Watson's talk yesterday was polished, Dr. Chen noted, but lacked the community connection that defines real preservation. What happens now? Evelyn asked. Now you present, Dr. Park said. We decide tomorrow morning. The next 90 minutes felt like my life's apex. I presented my grandmother's vision backed by the evidence Evelyn and I uncovered. I spoke of honoring ancestral wisdom while building bridges forward, of a space where stories breathe instead of gather dust. Evelyn sat in the front row, her steady smile anchoring me when nerves nipped. This wasn't just about money. It was about proving real passion can outlast political theater. Questions followed: sustainability, community engagement, long-term impact, curious and engaged, not perfunctory. Thank you, Ms. White, Dr. Chen said. We'll decide by 10 o'clock tomorrow. The waiting was torture. That evening, anxiety chased sleep from our apartment. We lay on the couch, her head on my chest, listening to each other's heartbeats. Whatever happens, she murmured, I'm proud of what you built: the proposal, the research, the courage to fight. We built it, I said. None of this exists without you. Your grandmother would be proud. I hope so. When worry made sleep impossible, We made love with fragile tenderness using touch as an anchor. We moved slowly, memorizing each breath and whisper, carving certainty out of uncertainty. Afterward, we held tight, trading promises about whatever came next. At 9:57 the next morning, the phone rang. Dr. Chen asked us to come in. The halls felt different as we walked through. Sophia insisted on joining and squeezed my hand in the conference room. All three members were there. Dr. Chen held a formal folder. After reviewing all materials including the misconduct evidence, we've reached our decision. She said, opening it. The foundation awards the full $50,000 cultural preservation grant to Rowan White for the Indigenous Heritage Cultural Center. The room erupted. Sophia whooped. Evelyn wrapped me in her arms, and I felt my grandmother so vividly I couldn't breathe. The dream that kept me going was finally real. Additionally, Dr. Chen continued, we're referring Mr. Watson's conduct to the State Ethics Board and removing his firm from future consideration. Connections wouldn't save him now. Thank you. I managed. Thank you for showing what authentic preservation looks like. Dr. Ortega said, we can't wait to see what you build. That evening we celebrated at the small place where we'd first really talked. Over wine and shared pasta, we mapped the future of the center, of us. I have a question, I said as dessert arrived. Her eyes sparkled. Ask. The center will need a head of historical research and archives, someone who can protect stories while opening them to new generations. Sounds like an incredible job. I know someone ideal if she'll take a chance on a small nonprofit with big dreams. Her smile could have lit the whole room. I think she's interested, even if it means working closely with the founder every day, especially then. We walked home under autumn moonlight, hand in hand, already sketching a place that would honor my grandmother and create something new together. The city glowed with possibility. For the first time since she died, the future felt like home. 6 months after that first afternoon in Sophia's shop, I stood in the main hall of the center watching children gather around Aaron Clearwater as he demonstrated traditional fishing. Sunlight poured through tall windows, brightening displays of artifacts and documents Evelyn had curated from our combined work. Opening day exceeded everything, Evelyn said, appearing with 2 coffees. 300 visitors. My grandmother would have loved seeing kids learn the old ways. The center had become everything I hoped: interactive exhibits, workshop rooms for crafts, and a library where Evelyn built a stunning archive blending recorded history and oral tradition. Schools were booking field trips. The State Historical Society wants to partner, she added. Collect elder testimonies before they're lost. You've been busy. We've been busy. Sophia arrived with a champagne bottle she'd saved. Time for a real celebration, just the 3 women who made this happen. When the last visitor left and we locked the doors, contentment settled over me like warmth. The center would grow, reach more people, hold more stories. Tonight, we honored what we'd done together. I have something for you, I told Evelyn, as Sophia poured in my office. Rowan, you already gave me the perfect job. This is different. I took the small velvet box from my desk, the one I'd carried for 2 weeks waiting for the right moment. Her eyes widened as I knelt beside her chair. Evelyn Hartley, you walked into my life when I needed hope. You believed in my grandmother's dream when I was ready to quit. You stood with me against Blake and helped me fight for what mattered. Tears brightened her blue eyes. You showed me love is trusting someone with everything, even when it's frightening. Especially then. Will you marry me? Build this adventure with me? Yes, she whispered. Then louder, laughing through tears. Yes, absolutely yes. The ring was simple silver with a small diamond, nothing flashy, chosen with care. It fit like everything between us had fit since the day we both reached for that vintage jacket. Sophia cried openly, raising her glass. To love that crushes corporate sharks and bureaucratic nonsense. To partnerships that make both stronger, Evelyn added. To my grandmother's dream and our future. I finished. 2 months later, On a crisp December afternoon, we exchanged vows in the forest clearing where we fell in love. Aaron officiated with traditional blessings that honored my people. Sophia stood as Evelyn's maid of honor. A handful of friends witnessed under ancient oaks. Evelyn wore a cream lace vintage dress from Sophia's shop, Fairy Tale Lovely. Her vows promised shared adventures and a careful guardianship of love the way we care for history. Intentionally, respectfully, knowing it can shape what comes next. When we kissed, the forest seemed to answer winter light through bare branches. Birds calling over the frozen creek and my grandmother's presence wrapped around us. "She's here," I whispered. "I know. I feel her." Our reception was intimate at the center, among the stories we'd worked to preserve. As we shared food and laughter, I realized this is what my grandmother pictured. Community honoring the past while celebrating the future. Late that night, after we'd cleaned up, we walked the center one more time. The exhibits glowed softly in security lights, a museum of memory and hope. "No regrets?" I asked, holding her hand before the display that told the story of my forest discovery. "Only that your grandmother isn't here to see it. She is. In every recorded story, every tradition passed on, every child who learns something they might have lost." We ended up in the children's area, perched on tiny chairs. Evelyn laughed, her dress pooling like petals. "Mrs. White," she said, tasting the new name. "I like the sound." "Me too." Outside, snow began to fall, covering Richmond in clean white. Inside, surrounded by proof of our shared work, the future stretched ahead like a blank page. "What do you think comes next?" she asked. "More stories to safeguard, more kids to teach, more adventures together." Perfect. We turned off the lights and locked the doors of the center that brought us together. Satisfaction settled, deep dreams realized, love secure. My grandmother's vision lived in every case and program. But more than that, her faith in real connection had led me to Evelyn, to the partnership that made everything else possible. Love really did show up while I was looking for something else, reshaping our lives in ways we never imagined. That first autumn afternoon, when we reached for the same jacket and found each other instead. The snow kept falling as we drove home, Mrs. White and Mrs. White ready for the chapters still unwritten.